On a global note, the World Bank has revised its 2024 growth forecast for South Asia to 6.4%, up from 6.0%, citing strong domestic demand in India and faster recoveries in crisis-hit countries like Sri Lanka and Pakistan. India's growth projection for the fiscal year ending March 2025 was increased to 7%, boosted by improved agricultural output and higher private consumption. World Bank Vice President Martin Razor highlighted South Asia as the fastest-growing emerging economy, with expected annual growth of 6.2% over the next 2 years. He emphasized the region's potential for even higher growth with continued economic reforms and global integration. The World Trade Organization has slightly raised its global trade growth forecast for 2023 to 2.7%, up from its previous estimate of 2.6%. In 2025, trade volumes are expected to increase by 3%, contingent on stability in the Middle East. The World Trade Organization's report highlighted that trade is recovering from the inflation-driven slump of 2023, but remains vulnerable to regional conflict, particularly in the Middle East. The World Trade Organization noted risks from diverging monetary policies among major economies, which could cause financial instability and impact debt servicing for lower-income nations. In Asia, the Bank of Japan announced that the wholesale inflation picked up in September, rising 2.8% year-on-year, surpassing market expectations. This acceleration, up from 2.6% in August, was driven by a surge in rice prices due to poor weather and increased demand from foreign tourists. However, the yen's rebound led to 2.6% decline in import costs, marking the first drop in 8 months. This decline in the yen-based import price index was influenced by government subsidies to curb utility bills and cheaper raw material imports. The People's Bank of China announced that it will begin accepting applications from financial institutions to join a newly created funding scheme worth 500 billion yuan, approximately $70.62 billion, aimed at bolstering the capital market. Eligible securities firms, fund companies, and insurers can use assets like bonds and stock ETFs as collateral for highly liquid assets. The PBOC introduced this facility to boost market confidence following a recent drop in Chinese stocks. Analysts see the scheme as a liquidity boost for non-bank financial institutions, though concerns remain over participation and operational details. In Europe, the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors reported that Britain's housing market saw further recovery in September as house prices, sales, and inquiries all increased. The house price balance reached plus 11, the first positive reading since October 2022. Surveyors expect continued growth, with 54% predicting price increases over the next year. Sales forecasts also improved, with a net balance of plus 45 for the next 12 months. However, the rental market remains under pressure as tenant demand exceeds supply. The German Economy Ministry said that the economy is expected to contract by 0.2% in 2024, marking the second consecutive year of negative growth. This would make Germany the only G7 nation to see economic contraction for 2 straight years. The revised forecast follows an earlier projection of 0.3% growth for 2024, as hopes for a second-half recovery failed to materialize. Germany's economy, already the weakest among large Eurozone economies in 2023, saw a 0.3% GDP decline last year. The last time Germany experienced 2 consecutive years of contraction was in 2002 to 2003. Ukraine's Statistics Service announced that the consumer inflation increased to 8.6% year-on-year in September, up from 7.5% in August. The rise was driven by higher energy prices, increased business costs, and a lower harvest. Monthly inflation reached 1.5%, with significant contributions from rising utility tariffs and electricity prices. Ukraine's energy sector continues to face challenges due to intensified Russian attacks on its infrastructure. In the Middle East, Canada's Minister of International Development, Ahmed Hussein, announced that Ottawa will provide an additional $15 million in humanitarian aid to Lebanon. This funding will support Canadian and international organizations in delivering essential services such as food, water, and emergency health care to civilians. Additionally, Canada will match up to $6 million in donations to the Canadian Red Cross Lebanon Humanitarian Needs Appeal and the Humanitarian Coalition's Lebanon Emergency Appeal from September 24 to November 3, 2024. This new funding is part of the $10 million in humanitarian assistance announced on September 28, with $4 million allocated to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the World Food Programme. Israel's finance ministry reported a budget deficit of 8.8 billion shekels, $2.3 billion in September, primarily due to increased expenses to fund their military actions in Gaza and Lebanon. The 12-month deficit rose to 8.5% of GDP, surpassing the 2024 target of 6.6%. Since the war began, military spending has exceeded 103 billion shekels, $27.35 billion. The Bank of Israel expects the deficit to decrease to 7.5% by year-end. In contrast, tax revenues increased by 9.6% in September and by 2.6% over the first 9 months of 2024. In the tech world, 3 cryptocurrency firms, Godbit, ZM Quant, and CLS Global, along with 15 individuals, have been charged with extensive fraud and market manipulation following an investigation that marked the FBI's first effort to create a digital token to aid in combating crime. Federal prosecutors in Boston reported that the investigation resulted in 4 arrests and agreements from 5 individuals to plead guilty, alongside the seizure of over $25 million worth of cryptocurrency. Acting U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy described the case as a combination of new age technology meeting an old school fraud, specifically a pump and dump scheme.